the hardest part of that ring.
For the hardest part of the ring.
Hello and welcome to episode 136 of Hardest Part of the Ring, the podcast where four friends get together to celebrate the wonder of professional wrestling. And it is 2021 and all of the troubles of last year have faded away and we're in paradise.
Life is so good now, isn't it?
It really is.
Picked the wrong month to do dry January.
Oh, God.
John.
Surely it's got to be wet January for everybody. Even if you don't drink. Brett's not a big drinker. I see you're on the whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah, straight.
Yeah. Oh, dear. I don't know. It's hard. Sometimes do we lean into the misery? Because sometimes we get our best stuff when we're talking about shit. Hence most of the pay-per-views we've talked about over the past few years.
Well,
WWE ones.
You could get me going down the political stance, but actually...
No, veto.
I was going to say I've been totally tuned out of it because it was stressing me out too much, so I have no idea.
Good decision, Brett. That's a good decision.
Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of people at work who've been similar. Like they're just
I just
over Christmas, no news.
No.
Yeah,
done with
I've had to do that with Twitter since lockdown, since the announcement last night. I thought I'm not going to read Twitter. I did that the first time and it really helped. So I'm not going to read Twitter for a few days. Anyway, I should introduce people in case anybody's deciding to tune in for the first time, which would be
Weird.
Crazy, but also not crazy. We get new listeners every week.
Oh yeah, true. Loads, hundreds, millions.
My name is hundreds or millions.
Typical John, lots of extremes.
Yeah, millions of new podcast listeners a week. My name's Adam. And Sam is here today.
Hello.
And John is with us.
Hello.
And Brett as well.
Hey.
And you probably noticed the title of this podcast. It's quite self-important, isn't it? It's like everyone's going to give a shit.
It's very ominous. The future
of
hardest part of the ring.
Yeah. I think we should say off the cuff because there are going to be a lot of people standing on a ledge with their phones listening to this.
Beachy Head is going to be packed. There's going to be
it's not over.
The queuing system.
It's not over, guys. Although, as a little teaser, I think there's maybe points last year when we thought maybe it could be.
True.
But we'll talk about everything. Shall we? Last podcast that we did was the Christmas quiz, and if you don't want any spoilers, you haven't listened to it yet, then maybe fast forward the next 15 seconds. The winner can now gloat.
Woo! Woo!
Do you think people recognise your woos?
I reckon, yeah. Everyone would be like, I know who that is.
Sam has won 75% of the quizzes he's taken part in. Is that right? Something like that.
It's amazing that I win a quiz and then Adam is just like, we need to discuss the future of hardest part of the ring. Shit.
Yeah, so that was our last episode, which was released in the, what did we call it? The Merry Neum or the Christmas Gooch or whatever we called it.
I like Merry Neum.
Merry Neum is very good.
I think Christmas Gooch is a bit too much on the nose, you know?
Have you ever had a gooch on your nose?
No comment. Actually, I mean, yeah, no comment.
I think that reveals the answer. So this is our first issue. It's not an issue. It's not a magazine. That's my other job. This is the first podcast of the year. And yeah, so basically we wanted to talk about, we were going to talk about this on the Christmas quiz, weren't we? But then we had loads of rounds and we had loads of, we had Secret Santa and things like that. So we didn't get round to it. But we are sort of looking at our approach to the podcast and what our plans are for the next year. And most of that is in reaction to 2020, right?
Yeah.
To be completely blunt, 2020 has been tough. This is our hot take.
Brutal.
Yeah. I don't know if you knew, guys, but 2020 was tough. There was a pandemic. And yeah, basically we sort of found ourselves getting to a stage where the podcast at times, with everything that was happening, with all the stress that people were having with having to isolate or not, or having work or not having work, or having family members go through issues or whatever it might be, just that alone meant that sometimes being prepared to sit down on a Monday night to watch 3 hours of the latest WWE pay-per-view became quite a challenge, didn't it? I remember you said, John, at some days on a Monday, you'd be sat at your desk going, "Oh God, the extra stress of having to do a pay-per-view is quite full on."
It's just a lot of time, right? Like in the evening, I don't really have 3.5 hours. It's tough to find that time in one night to watch that much wrestling and enjoy
always
it. You know?
The dreaded run time question as well. Who was the first to figure out the run time?
Yeah,
It's been interesting because I think kind of for maybe the last 6 months, maybe even longer, we've been in a situation of, oh God, how long is this going to be? I'm dreading watching this, having to watch it, and getting mixed results. And I think kind of we all agree that we've all really enjoyed actually doing the podcast itself.
Oh God, yeah.
But then it would be kind of another week of dreading what is coming up next.
Yeah. It became a bit of a chore, mainly watching every single WWE pay-per-view. And like you said, there were mixed results, so sometimes we were happily surprised. John and I especially have been loving Roman Reigns. The other two, not so much.
Nope.
But yeah, it's been a strange one. And that's just from the pandemic stuff. Of course, we also had during 2020 all of the speaking out movement. And that obviously had a profound effect on all of us. I remember, Sam, you messaging at the time and being like, I think I might be done with wrestling.
There's no, we want to keep, obviously, the episode quite light and kind of fun, but, there's no bouncing around the fact that what's happened this year with Speaking Out is so shit, and kind of all of us have loved wrestling for years and years and years, and then to hear, what happened and all of the kind of revelations around it has just been a real kind of wind out of the sails situation.
Especially the fact it was so many people that were perceived to be as pillars, especially within the Brit wrestling community.
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking.
I'm wearing today my Dunkzilla t-shirt, and which Brett designed. And it's one of my only wrestling t-shirts I have left. Have you had to throw away any wrestling t-shirts, Brett?
No. Thankfully, and I hope it still stays that way. I haven't designed a shirt for Scumbag.
That you know of.
I've lost a t-shirt and a hat, but I have brought a new one back into the rotation.
Oh yeah, he's unzipping,
I'm a hugger.
And he's nude.
Oh,
I'm a hugger.
Great one.
Retro Bailey, like it. Yeah, so obviously that was really shit, wasn't it? I definitely remember feeling at the time I'm never going to go to any wrestling events again, and why am I watching this? And I think even though the initial shock of that did dissipate a bit, it's kind of carried on throughout the year in terms of a lot of the WWE stars, or at least the likes of, and I will mention their names because we're just doing it fleetingly, but the Matt Riddle stuff and the Velveteen Dream stuff, and having these wrestlers that we were real fans of and who we picked in our drafts, and
people who we've
that.
met and talked to in person as well.
Yeah.
It's just
it's just been, it's conflicting because all of us try and be good people in most walks of life, and also try and be quite, I don't know. I mean, we get taken the piss out of, especially by Amir from WrestlePlug for being really right on with stuff, but so it makes it hard to actually support and watch some of this stuff at times. So that's the main sort of takeaway. And because of this, we are sort of basically just going to make some changes. We're going to make a few changes to what we do, and the main one being we are no longer going to review every single WWE pay-per-view religiously, because we've done it for 3 years and we're a bit fatigued. So what are we going to do instead, Sam?
So we are about to make a lot of changes. The first is that we're going to start noting down on the running order when we're going to switch to people.
Well, no, imagine if it was completely scripted.
I was sure you were going to say the first point was we're losing Brett. Shoved out.
Well, I was going to say
actually about to rely. Gone.
It'd be a solo podcast if I was really worried about getting rid of all unsavoury characters, but nobody wants to just hear me do monologues. So you guys have got to stay on.
There you go.
Okay. So we are going to move to fortnightly release schedule. A lot of our listeners will realise that kind of we've been on. I'm not even sure how to describe our current release schedule.
I'd say it was like 3 out of 4 weeks we used to do, or like off. 4 out of 6.
Essentially kind of we're going to be paring back the amount of podcasts we make and hopefully using that extra time to improve the quality of podcasts that we make, because obviously being possible. A British-based podcast, reviewing WWE pay-per-views reactively, essentially we kind of weren't really given a lot of time to work with what we were given. And over the last year, there's kind of, whilst we feel like the quality of wrestling has dropped in some places, there have been things in the podcast that we really like and we want to push forwards, specifically more kind of post-produced content like The Undertaking, and kind of just a bit more different stuff around wrestling. We all still love wrestling. We love the history of it, especially. And it's an area that kind of, as a podcast, we want to try and explore and kind of make more accessible to more listeners, generally. Yeah.
And the key is we want to do what we're enjoying, right? That having spoken to a few people about it, it's just like, this isn't our job.
No.
We don't have to do any of this. It's just a fun hobby for us. That's how it started. So we may as well keep it fun and do what we want to be doing. So
and
there's all sorts of other
stuff.
So
WWE, by its nature, for all of us, we have, it has periods where you just totally dip out of it because it just goes in a direction that you're just like, nah. Usually it's when Vince is back on the reins.
So
when taking control,
comes back for a bit,
bringing back Goldberg again.
I cannot believe they brought fucking Goldberg back.
I got to be honest, when I saw this morning that Goldberg was back again, I had a huge smile across my face because it was almost our decision to kind of take a step away from WWE product on a weekly basis. It feels like the right choice because we're not going to be kind to Goldberg, is the honest truth. There's nothing nice to be said about a 60 or 50-year-old man who could barely move.
If he has a match with Reigns, then
the thing, thing is, it just gets so frustrating because we are not diminishing the talent that is on their roster, ignoring the unsavory parts, but there's so much quality, but it just doesn't get to shine, and that gets extra frustrating. So we all have in the past, a little bit of step back from WWE.
I don't think there's a wrestling fan out there who's followed WWE constantly throughout their wrestling watching history. Everyone dips in and out of it because you watch it for a bit and you really enjoy it, and then it does something that pisses you off. And you're like, what the fuck are you doing?
I mean, the other key thing is that wrestling doesn't have an off season. It's constant cycle, and kind of 3 years of us reviewing every single WWE pay-per-view from Smackville to WrestleMania, you start to see a lot of the same stories being told again and again. Which
I was speaking to my friend who does an Arsenal podcast, and obviously Arsenal have been in a really shit run for ages, the worst run of form for decades. And he was just like, I don't want to watch these matches. I just watch them because of the podcast. I've been an Arsenal fan all my life, but in other periods like this, where it's the world shit and then my team shit, I probably just would check the highlights. But I need to watch it because I then need to talk about it. But football, Arsenal have now turned it around and won 3 in a row. Just chuck that in there. And he's enjoying it again. But also, like you say, they have a couple of months of the year where they get some time off to refresh. Anyway, it's definitely don't want it we don't want to turn it into oh, it's so tough, guys. And,
no, I mean, we still love wrestling, and
AEW is great.
Yeah. Kind of the off season really leads into the next key point that we were going to discuss.
Yeah,
Adam,
John. Throw it over to John.
Why me?
What are we doing?
I don't want to deliver the bad news. I'm the good guy. I'm the enthusiastic one.
It's not actually bad news because they're getting episodes.
Oh, okay. I'll have to give it then. Fine.
Yeah.
So we are taking the rest of January off just to refresh and put together some content, some new ideas for content for this year. But there are going to be some mini episodes we're releasing over the next couple of weeks. We are doing our favourite matches from 2020.
pre-recorded episode, something we've never done.
Yeah.
So what happens if Vince dies like in 3 weeks and then we put out an episode about our best matches of 2020? We'll have to just cancel it. Come back on. I'd come back for that.
If Vince dies in 3 weeks?
Yeah. I'd come back for that. I'd come back to do a special podcast episode, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It'd be fascinating.
It's not like we're going anywhere.
The power vacuum alone.
It's fine. He has signed a deal with the devil. He's still got another 620 years or so.
He's not going to die in our lifetimes.
It'll be a cadaver walked out.
Yeah. So yeah, next week you're going to hear Adam, that's me, and John,
that's me,
doing discussing some of their favourite matches from 2020, and then the week after that you'll get Sam, that's him.
So
and Brett.
We're doing hardest
me.
part of the ring night 2, where the actual main event takes place.
Nice.
No, that's when all the people who bought tickets for both nights don't come back for the second night. And then I think the last week of January won't be around. So this means we're not doing the Rumble, which is the first time in ages. But we thought, hey, let's watch a Rumble and enjoy as fans, and then we'll be back in early Feb. And the key thing is we are going to do big WWE pay-per-views. Of course we'll review WrestleMania. Of course we'll review... If there's something where the card is just unbelievable and the build has been good, we will review it. Or maybe 2 of us will jump on and review it, or 3 of us, or whatever it might be. We're just not going to be doing every single one. That's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, how long have we been going? Do we need some great anecdotes to fill out this episode? We've only done 17 minutes, guys. I wish we could get listeners to call in live now. Oh, hold on. Hello.
This is Dad again.
Sure. Yeah, this is perfect. I'll ask the guys. Guys, just someone randomly cool. If you could sign one wrestler from AEW to move over to WWE to be in the title picture, who would it be? And that's from Steve.
Steve, long time listener.
Good old Steve.
Who's it going to be? Brett?
Amazing. Who do you dislike enough to go lose to Roman Reigns?
The obvious answer would be Kenny Omega, but it let's be realistic here, because Kenny Omega wouldn't work. There's got to be a wrestler who would actually work.
Cody, right? He's got the history.
Cody's
got the name.
Good with the history.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Well, it would and it wouldn't. I don't want to see Cody back in WWE.
Every wrestler I think of, I just think of them getting absolutely... How do you ruin their career? And it almost always ends up with them. And then they get put in a feud for the 24/7 title.
What about Sonny Kiss? I'd like to see how that would work out.
Yeah.
In the main event, straight into the main event.
Yeah, why not?
Freshly squeezed Orange Cassidy.
Oh, they could not do that. They could
Put him in a program with R-Truth. It would
They
be
could
awful.
not book that at all.
Yeah, 24/7 champion for the next year.
Exactly. Feuding with the gobbledygooker.
Do you know what?
It's a championship.
I'd actually say move the Young Bucks over.
Ooh.
Tag team wrestling in WWE, come on.
You're telling me you wouldn't want to see the Young Bucks versus the Usos? Or the Young Bucks versus the New Day?
Not enough. Not enough for them to move over there.
No.
Not enough for them to be on the pre-show of Backlash.
That would be rough.
Could you imagine the episode of Being the Elite where where the Young Bucks have to say, guys, I know the message we've been putting forward all these years, but we've been offered a really lucrative contract. We're going to sign with the WWE. That we think the future's really bright there. We really like what Vince's vision is.
Oh my God,
Nope.
yeah, that'd be amazing.
Do you know what, actually? John Silver would be... He's not going to go into the main event, but he's got so much charisma, that guy. Love to see what he would do in WWE.
He's a lot of fun. Oh, I don't know. Lance Archer? He's big
Yeah,
enough.
he's very WWE.
With Jake the Snake.
Oh my goodness. A Lance Archer,
Yeah.
Baron Corbin feud would be... blow your brains out.
Yeah, that'd be pretty special. Cool. Well, that completely made up off the cuff question didn't go too badly, actually.
Who would you add, Adam?
I haven't actually thought about that. Let's go with John Moxley.
Be interesting to see what he does.
His wife apparently is done some comms. So if they could sign her as well,
It's a big shout.
maybe I'd like to maybe change his gimmick up a little bit. make him grow a fringe. Maybe call him the lunatic fringe because he's got a fringe.
Is that why they called him a lunatic fringe? Because he had a fringe? Is that part of it?
I hope not. I don't think so.
Did he have a fringe?
He did, because he's got a really big forehead, hasn't he? I think he was one of those guys who was like, his hair was receding and he had the hair going down the front, and then finally
he did have a fringe.
Gave up.
Wow, the lunatic fringe.
Oh, Brian Cage.
Yeah, send him over there. Because
he'd be the next EC3, though.
Could you imagine with all the people that have gone the other way, like, you know, having a chat of just, you know, they've called and would any of them say, yeah, go for it?
The thing is, like,
Ty Dillinger.
Eventually, in years to come, it's going to happen. You are going to get someone who is disgruntled and upset with AEW, who doesn't like Cody, who doesn't like the system there, and they are going to find their place in WWE, and that is going to be fascinating to watch.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I suppose statistically that will happen, but you just can't see it.
No, not for a while.
Just because you can imagine all the WWE people in AEW being like, the fucking hell, this is so much better. Oh my God.
I think at the moment, AEW is riding high and WWE is, you know, not doing as well as it. And I think kind of, I would be very surprised if that continues to be the way for years and years and years to come. Like, I think, you know, they're going to ebb and flow, and it's just the way it goes with wrestling.
I bet Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn watch AEW every week and just want to be there. Like all their old
those
friends
two,
wrestling.
I'm so desperate to see those two go across.
If there's one thing that you can take away from the John Huber passing a couple of weeks ago, it's that with all this wrestling, like, they all just watch the same shows. They all love wrestling, whether it's WWE, AEW, whatever. Like, you know, these aren't two people who are at war or two companies who hate each other's guts. It's just wrestling.
That's a good little segue, though, and something else that we could talk about before we do say goodbye, and we will do a shorter episode. Did you guys watch the John Huber tribute?
Man, that was
Dynamite.
Very, very good.
Yet.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I've been putting it off because I know it's going to make me cry.
Yeah,
I watched it.
Same,
I watched
sad.
some of it on New Year's Eve because it was such a. I mean, it was so weird to be basically crying by myself watching stuff. Basically, New Year's Eve obviously was a complete write-off this year, and then it's my wedding anniversary the day before. So my wife and I had like the celebration there. New Year's Eve's always a bit rubbish. This one, I was watching wrestling, a big tribute to a guy who had died, seeing his family and his son, and seeing everybody breaking down in tears. And I was just like, after a year of a massive pandemic, I was just like, it's quite fitting, really, to sort of sob my way into 2021. But wow, they did that brilliantly, didn't they?
An absolutely beautiful tribute. It kind of, John Huber is going to be remembered in the same circles as Owen Hart and Eddie Guerrero, and for someone who didn't achieve the same levels as Eddie or kind of have the same lineage as Owen, that just goes to speak even more to his character.
Yeah, that's a great tribute. Did you get that from the internet?
No.
No, I'm joking. No, Sam came up with it at the top of his head. Yeah, well, Brett, I definitely recommend you watch it, and John, if you
Yeah, I will do.
watched it already. And anybody else, if you haven't watched any AEW in the past, but you did, you were a fan of Luke Harper or Brody Lee, then yeah, I'd recommend it because there were some fun matches in there as well.
Yeah. Just great tribute episode. Fantastic.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Well, given everything that we've said in terms of moving into the new year and changing things up, we'd love to hear from the listeners if there's anything that I know a lot of you do tune in for the pay-per-view reviews, and obviously it's great to hear. You like hearing other people's thoughts. I do that on other podcasts when it comes to football and things as well. The bread and butter are those reviews, and we will keep doing a lot of those. But if there's any other content that we've done in the past that you'd like to hear more of, or if there's other new stuff that you'd like us to focus on. I know we all really enjoyed doing Jericho's top 5 matches, doing a bit of a deeper dive into a specific wrestler. If there's any specific wrestler that you'd like us to focus on.
Any period of time in wrestling.
Yeah. Anything you think that you would love to hear the four of us talk about, then definitely get in touch. And if you want to get in touch, there's one man who will tell you how to do it.
Yes, that's me, isn't
John.
it?
Go on, Brett.
Yes, if people want to get in touch, they can send their emails to hardestpartofthering@gmail.com, or they can send us a tweet or message us on Instagram. We are at Hardest Part Pod.
We are. And do you reckon the shop will come back in 2021?
Oh, not early 2021. Not in my schedule.
You're a very busy man. Actually, I wonder if because obviously you used to do a lot of wrestling stuff, and I know that's dried up a bit. I wonder if will we get to an indie show in the first half of this year? Probably not. Second half of the year?
I hope so.
I think when indie wrestling comes back, all four of us will hopefully be there.
Yeah.
I've
it'd be good,
really
wouldn't it?
missed it. Like just that connection to it. I think it's just like the fan base and just the atmosphere. I've really, really missed it.
Yeah.
And now there has been a nice big gap from what's happened, and all of these promotions hopefully have had a really good chance to get their act together. And obviously there's, other things that have been going on. So you'd hope you'd be able to go and sort of feel that things were pretty safe for everybody. And
Yeah.
there are no total pricks there.
One would hope.
But if if we think there's no total pricks in the room, does that mean we're the total pricks?
I think we're probably the total pricks.
That's the time to wrap up the episode.
From 4 total pricks with love, thanks for listening to Hardest Part of the Ring for all of 2020. We're going to have a lot of fun in 2021, and we hope you continue to enjoy the ride with us. Until next week, when we're back with a pre-recorded episode featuring me and John, the Dream Team. It's goodbye from me, Adam. Goodbye, Sam.
Happy New Year.
Goodbye, John.
Happy New Year.
And goodbye, Brett.
Goodbye.
That was the Hardest Part of the Ring.
That is the hardest part of that ring.